Okay, I think it's about time. What do you think, Elena?
Yeah, sounds good, Julio. Let's get rocking.
Well, let's do it. Hey everyone, thanks so much for being here. Yeah, just some quick introductions on our end. My name is Julio Gonzalez. I'm a customer success manager here at Kudoboard. And this is my colleague Elena, also a customer success manager here at Kudoboard. Yeah, we're just gonna be chatting today about some fun ways to engage your teams with Kudoboard, learning about best practices for creating an engaging culture-focused board. We're going to be chatting about settings for, and best practices for maximum engagement, and also showcasing some fun examples, along with a couple of new features that were recently released. Yeah, other than that, we're mostly just going to be in product and just showing you, how to actually manage these kind of engagement and culture focused boards. Ghislaine's going to be in the chat answering questions as we roll through. If you have any questions, put it in the Q&A and Ghislaine will answer, and then we'll have some additional time too at the end for Q&A. And this is going to be recorded. We're going to post it down the road on our website too. So, you can share out with your colleagues who aren't able to be here or just reference in the future as well. Cool. So today's agenda, we're going to spend the beginning of it on actual example of a event board that I created just recently. We're going to review best practices to get maximum engagement and just chat about some ways to promote that board for, maximum engagement. We're going to jump into real world examples of how some folks are using Kudoboard to engage their teams today and the public as well. And then we're going to chat about some couple of new features that were released, and specifically our new dashboard that was just released last week for our Business Pro and Enterprise customers. And then at the end, as I mentioned, we'll have some time for Q&A as well. Cool. So to hop into it, we're going to go into product and go into um, settings, best practices, and comm strategies for creating an engaging culture board. So if you all could see my desktop screen, let me know. Can you all see my screen? Can you see my screen, Elena? Cool, perfect. Awesome. A lot of the boards we want to chat about today are things that are a little outside of the box of what folks typically use Kudo board for. So more so engagement and culture focused boards. So, this example, May 2026. I just created this board here for our team. Every year at Kudo board, we do a 2026 biking challenge. Yeah, I'm getting a little proactive. It's in a couple of weeks, so not too far away and I want to make sure I get started on creating this soon. And we're going to review this board and go through like, oh, what are some of the best practices to make sure you're engaging your team as you're creating these engagement and culture focused boards. So just quickly, we're going to go ahead and chat about what are some of the hallmarks for a good engagement and culture focused board, and how do you lay the foundation to encourage engagement. So one thing you'll notice here for these engagement culture focused boards is that I've added a pinned post to the top left that just goes over what the goal of this board is. This is our fifth one, but I still always like to include just a bit of encouragement on this instructional post. And it says, hey, like, oh, this is our fifth annual spring biking challenge. The top three folks with the most miles will be given prizes curated by me at our offsite in July. And it just is a way to encourage people to share their photos, experiences on their bike rides, um, in a way to help encourage people, and point them toward the right direction of what you want to see. Is to add a couple of posts already on here before you invite the larger team, and also to just review settings. And we'll get to that in a second. And you'll see here, like, I added a post here of a bike ride I did this April, a couple of weeks ago. And I'm saying, hey, I want to uphold my title from last year, and I'm getting ready for it. So we're going to jump into, all the settings for these engagement and culture focused boards. For those of you that haven't created a board yet, it's pretty easy to manage. Everything that you're going to need to manage these boards you create, they're going to be here at the top left. So for something like this, I may want to change the appearance as an example. If I click here, you'll see here there's tons of options to choose from for backgrounds. For a spring biking challenge, I will go to here and check out a different theme. Maybe I'll go to the sports and games section and see some options. Cool. Yeah, I'll go ahead and click this bike background. And some other things you might want to do here in this background is change the intro effect. So, if you had confetti, you may want to change it to something like this. So it'll be, very dependent on the kind of thing you're celebrating. For someone's birthday, you would probably want to do balloons or fireworks, things like that. So definitely encourage you when you get your board created before inviting anyone to the board, making sure that the appearance is what you want it to be. And of course, you could do things like change your font, change the post placement to the top rather than the bottom for new posts. And then next step, I would say after we review appearance is to just go ahead and review the settings for these engagement and culture boards to make sure you're set it yourself up for the best engagement possible. So for example, for something like this, you'll notice I've added Galena as an additional admin for this board. So Galena can help me manage it. Any boards that are created on our annual Business Pro and Enterprise plans, you will be able to add additional admins, as many as you want. So if you're creating, an event-focused board, you can certainly have as many people manage these as needed. Maybe you may want to, moderate a board potentially. That's an option too. You can make a board global so it appears on everyone's dashboard as soon as they log in for those of you on annual plans. And then for me, I would definitely enable all of these engagement features. So, likes, comments, tagging. And then you'll notice here, it just adds another level of engagement for these engagement and culture boards on the post level. So I can go ahead and, like my own posts. And it just makes it so it's a fun way to engage. You can comment on one another's posts. So I highly encourage that. So I would say, you know, step one for these boards when created, have that instructional post. I would always pin it to the top left so it doesn't move from that position on the board. Go ahead and add your own post and, maybe reach out to a couple of close colleagues so they can add a couple of posts with media you want to see. So if it is photos or videos or GIFs, people are going to follow the lead of what they see. So I highly encourage you to have that media already on there. And then the next step, really, after you've laid the foundation for this board, is to invite your team. People do it in all sorts of ways, but the most common one is, of course, like via email. You can copy the URL and send that out to people, on the text or in a newsletter or whatever makes sense. You can invite your full team via groups if you are in a Business Pro or Enterprise plan. If you have Slack or Teams integrated, for those of you on annual plans, you can invite via DM or via channel. And for those of you that are in office or hybrid, I definitely encourage you to print out the QR code for these boards. Now, I'm remote, but I go to our Chicago office every so often. And when I'm there next week, I'm definitely going to put this in the break room area as a way to just encourage people to add to this board. Aside from that, one other quick thing I wanted to note as a best practice for these boards is to go ahead if you are connected to Slack or Teams on an annual enterprise or pro plan, to potentially connect it to a channel that you have that's public. It just helps it stay more top of mind if your team already uses those systems. And anytime anyone adds to it, it highlights it. So those are some of the frameworks for best practices for these engagement and culture focus boards. Ghislaine is going to add the Help Center article that we have that goes over best practices for these kinds of boards in the chat a little more in depth. But this kind of boards, the best way to encourage it is to make sure you're pointing people in the right direction with these instructional posts, these settings, and by having some media and some posts already on here. Great. So now that we've, created this board, I've shown you the foundation of all these settings. I'm going to show you how some folks are actually using Kudoboard now to celebrate their teams for these engagement and culture boards. So we'll go ahead and move over to this board created by Sage. And you'll see, their team, they really love spring and they love the spring foods and that they have in their area, and also sweets. So, these folks, they have an instructional post here that says, hey, it's spring photo contest. Add your favorite treats from spring. Folks that are getting the most likes are clearly the winners. Rebecca Lee here had some cookies turned into muffins. And you'll see they're posting things that they bake, things that they buy, savory treats, sweet treats. You'll see Sally here clearly won by making some homemade challah bread. Great. So yeah, it depends on what your team likes too, I would say. So if your team, you know that everyone on the team is a foodie, a board like this could be great to create. So I would encourage you all to think, oh, like how does my team celebrate already? What are they interested in? And what is going to help engage my colleagues? And then you'll see this board here, created to engage the public by the National Parks Conservation Association. This was just created fairly recently. And you'll see like the NPCA here also has a very good instructional post that, says, oh, contribute by adding a short message of appreciation or gratitude, a favorite memory of a place that you've been to within the national park system, a gift that captures your appreciation. And, these folks have gotten great engagement, lots of people adding different kinds of media, gifs, photos. You'll see folks here like Scott added a photo of Zion National Park. People are thanking the rangers. And it's definitely just a great way to encourage people. And like as you saw, like they had a great instructional post that helped encourage it. And I'm sure like, they advertised it in, a multitude of ways that could be, adding it to their socials or in a newsletter. So I definitely want to encourage you all to think, oh, how would my team see this most easily? Is that going to be, via Slack? Is it going to be by having it on my intranet? Is it going to be in an email byline? So just, yeah, think of those ways too. And a good way to where people are, I would say where people often are, if that's in an intranet or Slack, if you can post it there, it's going to help encourage that participation. And then here we have a pet month board. May is pet month. And I love this board. And I always encourage people to create a pet month board if you have lots of pets within your office. Because I'm sure, I mean, I'm a pet owner. I have a couple of cats and a dog, and my phone is, filled with pictures of my pets. I love to share those photos with my colleagues when I have a chance. Um, so this one, I would say this board for something like this is such a fun and easy win. Everyone who's a pet owner loves to see pets, and even if you're not a pet owner, I'm sure you like some pets, and you can check out your colleagues' photos on here. Yeah, highly encourage you for the month of May. If you're not sure of where to get started for these engagement and culture boards, this is a really good way to do it. And for colleagues to share, their pet family members. Cool. And we'll move on here. May is also API Heritage Month. So for those of you that do have ERGs, DEI committees, if you're already celebrating these in some way and you think that you could use Kudoboard to celebrate, highly encourage you to. You'll see that this team, they also added an instructional post here that says, oh, post about your family recipes, share family stories, and people are doing just that. It's really great to see that most of these posts, if not all, have images. So as we were saying, for any of you that do have ERGs, DI committees, yeah, if you can, if you already celebrate and you want to use Kudoboard, I highly encourage you all to. And if your groups ever have any questions, you can certainly reach out to us specifically for those of you that are already on an annual Business Pro Enterprise plan. And you can reach out to Ghislaine or myself at success@kudoboard.com. Yeah, and then we'll hop into this another example on here. This is another one that that I created, and I create year over year for my team. So us at Kudoboard, a lot of us really enjoy the outdoors. And as I mentioned, I would say if you can cater these engagement and culture focused boards to your team. So, I know a lot of us enjoy the outdoors, so I create this, summer adventures boards. Again, I've added a very clear post of like, oh, what's the goal of this board, right? Let's chronicle our team's like weekend passion projects, adventures we want to share, time spent outside. You'll see Galena, who lives on like this wonderful farm in Washington, posts a lot of her harvests here. I go backpacking in the Sierras annually and I post my trip here. And folks are posting, oh, they're, walking their dogs, they're camping with their family. My colleague Ron, posts his morning ritual of going on a walk to the beach. So yeah, if you can, cater this to your team. And, one thing I want to know too is like, if you are in that hybrid or remote environment, this is a great way to stay connected. I'm working remotely in Minneapolis with my team. And there's only so much time to, chat about, oh, what are we up to on the weekends? And I want to stay connected to my colleagues. And this is an easy way to do it for folks to share those experiences and still, have a social connection of some kind. Cool. And we'll go over here to the quarterly shoutouts board. So yeah, this board here, this sample, it's more so a peer-to-peer appreciation focused board. I see folks create these like depending on the cadence in a quarterly cadence or H1, H2, or an annual quarterly shoutout board. And these are designed, for peer-to-peer appreciation to thank colleagues for the small things folks do for one another on a regular basis. You'll see here, there's pin here, like pinned post that goes over the guidelines for the board. Tagging has been enabled on this board, so Jalen here gets a notification saying, hey, you've been tagged on this post from Tony. Go check it out. Likes and comments are enabled. And you'll notice too that they have hashtags for their core values. So if I click work collaboratively, I can see all the other posts that correlate to that value. Ghislaine is also going to add the best practices for these peer-to-peer shadow boards in the chat. So you all can review as needed. But yeah, this is great in that like you can create it on a whatever cadence makes sense to your team, have it open for as long as you want. And it's a great way for colleagues to just, shout each other out and say thanks for the small things folks are doing for one another. Cool. So yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention, aside from these event engagement and culture boards, you can also encourage participation and kind of make our standard recurring milestones, things like birthdays or work anniversaries, a little more engaging by adding prompts, which is a new feature we recently released. So for those of you that are on Business Pro Enterprise plans, when you're creating a board, you can add a prompt that, encourages people to add something fun outside of, just the messages for your colleague. So you'll see here for this work anniversary board, of course, we're still encouraging people to say, hey, happy work anniversary. But we've also added a fun question on here. Gillian is going to add in the chat too how to enable prompts. But you'll see here for this prompt that was enabled when I go to add a post, it stays here top of mind. So when I do add my message saying happy work anniversary, I can also think, oh, like what character would he play in Ice movie? And you can always change this as the creator. You can make it customized. We have a ton of prompts that you can choose from too. But you can certainly edit it to anything that you'd like. Cool. And moving on over, I'm going to show you all a new feature that was recently released, the new home screen. So this is just another way to encourage your colleagues, one, to create boards, so have a welcome message for your team, for those of you on Business Pro Enterprise plans, but also to highlight the boards, the engagement and culture focused boards that you are creating. So you'll see here we have our Q2 2026 shoutouts created. And for any boards that you've marked as global, meaning they show up prominently for everyone on their dashboard, you can highlight it here. So if I wanted to, I could edit it and I could select a different board to highlight here along with our 2026 shoutouts. And aside from that, our new home has some quick actions. You can create a board easily. You can see all the boards you recently created or were invited to add to. If you're an admin on these Biz Pro Enterprise plans, you can set up automations and create custom card themes. So yeah, highly encourage you to explore that when you have a chance. Of course, you still have your dashboard, typical dashboard here, where you can see all the boards that you're creating, receiving or adding posts to. And also for you all that are on these annual plans, if you're ever looking for inspiration for, oh, what should I create next potentially, just go to our inspiration tab here on the left-hand side. You can see, oh, Earth Day's coming up, Volunteer Appreciation Week, Admin Professionals Day is next week on Wednesday. So there's, some inspiration for you all here. Cool. Let me go ahead and share my other screen here. One sec, y'all. Hmm. Can you see my screen, Delana? Oh,
Ending. Yep.
okay, cool. Okay. So let's move on here. Um, so some additional resources for you all. So yeah, if you have questions and you're already on an annual Business Pro Enterprise plan, um, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Yelena at success@kudoboard.com. For those of you that want to learn more about our plans, and that enables you to have all the additional features that we've kind of chatted about, including tagging and likes and comments. You can sign up for a demo. Gillian is going to put it in the chat. And then, Gillian has already shared those best practices for these engagement and culture boards for shout out boards. And Gillian, if you could also share the ones for mouse boards, that would be awesome. Thank you. Um, yeah, one other quick thing I wanted to mention coming soon. We are partnering with a few other recognition systems providers who offer things like points and nominations and more. So if you'd like to learn more about that and you already are a customer for our Business Pro Enterprise solutions before the official rollout, yeah, just let us know in the Q&A and someone from our team will reach out back out to you in the next week or two. Cool. And just for some inspiration, some upcoming events to celebrate. Next week is Admin Professionals Day and Earth Day. May, we have National Pet Month. Definitely encourage you all to create for that if you can. Also, AAPI Heritage Month, Nurses Day on May 6th. June is Pride Month, Juneteenth, National Work From Home Day. I know last year from one of our colleagues for National Work From Home Day created an engagement focused board where we were sharing photos of our home offices, which was fun to see. Um, July 25th, National Intern Day, July 31st, National System Admin Appreciation Day. And of course, I encourage you if you're having an offsite soon or want to create those peer-to-peer appreciation boards, highly recommend creating a shout out board, ERG events, that kind of thing. For those of you that are on those business and pro enterprise plans, you can create as much as you want for your colleagues. So if you see an opportunity, I would encourage you to give it a try. Cool. And we have a few minutes left for Q&A. So yeah, Delana, I'll let you yeah, pick questions and send it my way and we can get started.
Awesome. All right, Julio. Fiona asks, is there a way I could put a feed of a board into my intranet to help keep the board top of mind?
No, that's a great question. I should have mentioned that earlier. For those of you that are on our business and pro and enterprise plans, in the settings page for those boards that are being created, and right below the engagement section, there's an option to get embeddable iframe code. So you can, embed that on your website, on your intranet, and then folks can get a preview of the board and click go to board and then add their message. Gillian, can you add the Help Center article for that in chat? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I'll add the embed a board support article. And then I want to call out a question from Lauren as well, who asks, I noticed that there are collages in posts. Was this something that was created outside of Kudoboard and then uploaded as a part of the post, or is that available in Kudoboard?
That is available in Kudoboard. So if you want to add more than one photo, just go there and click add multiple photos or drag photos into the photo section, and then you will be able to edit your collage too. So if you have horizontal photos, you can add a couple. You can do vertical, a couple of like horizontal photos, whatever makes sense for your images. But yeah, I mean, I love collages personally, so I definitely try to add some when it's applicable.
Great. And let's see, any last questions that we can help answer while we're all here together? Feel free to post them. Otherwise, I'll peruse what's already been posted throughout this conversation. Are you afraid we're going to hang up on you again? Okay, let's see. Well, on that note, Julio, unless something else comes in, it looks like everything else has been answered in the chat, so, or the Q&A. Ooh,
Awesome. Cool.
I spoke too soon. We have another one from Lauren. Let's see. Is there any way to Yeah. So, Lauren, there's a question about GIFs and images and having them be high res. And this will have to do with Julio. I'll just take this one because I see the
Sure.
question. But this will have to do, Julio, we use Unsplash, correct? Is there any other image or GIF provider that we use?
I believe it's just Unsplash. Yeah.
And so basically when you choose to upload an image or a GIF into your post, it'll be sourcing directly from Unsplash. So you can choose to upload one of those or to find your own GIF or image and upload that directly. So if you prefer something that's higher res, go ahead and find that on your own, and then the post will accept that, but you won't be able to find that through our library, if you're looking for one specific. But there should be a variety of good quality GIFs and images for sure in our posts available. Okay, let's see. This is a really good question from Rami. How do I know if others are using this platform? And I'm assuming here that the question is like on my team. How do I know if others on my team are using the platform? Julio, can you help answer that?
Yeah, I would say, if you're curious to learn about if there are other folks on your team using your platform, just sign up for a demo with our sales team because they can share like, oh, there's X amount of, folks with your email domain that are already on the platform. And more than likely there's some folks using it already. So it could be a good way to also make a case to like, oh, if you notice there's X amount of folks already buying, one-time consumer boards as an example, it might be a good idea to move over to an annual plan so you're all under the same umbrella, creating for one another on your team.
Mhm. Totally. And oftentimes, on that note, there are so many people within organizations that are already using your plan. So it can be really impressive to know like how organic of a product we have, to know how many people are using it like on their own. And if you are in a leadership position, it's really easy to get people to engage with the product because they're already using it. So once you purchase kind of this higher level plan, or if you already have one, you'll oftentimes see high engagement because it's already habitualized within your employee base. Okay, there's a couple more now that we kind of like petered out. Now we're ramping up again. So, Julio, another great question is, do I always have to select a recipient? So for like these culture and engagement boards, and this is coming from Courtney, but like, do you have to select a recipient if a pet month board isn't for someone? So how does that work?
No, you don't. You don't. So, like, you do have to add like the name of like what this event is for those of you that are on our business and pro enterprise plans. It'll say like, oh, who's this? Who's the audience? So we'll have to add something there in terms of like, oh, is it my team or my company? Or you can simply just add, the name of the event, so like a month, like Pet Month 2026 as an example. So you certainly don't have to. And if yeah, for that field, I would just add the name of the event. And that also will inform like what shows up in the tab. So for example, if you put pet appreciation like on Chrome, it'll say like pet appreciation month, Kudoboard. So just so you know, I wouldn't add a name of like an individual or like me as the creator to something that is event focused.
Mhm. Absolutely. And then another good question from Tanisha is, do you need to have an enterprise level account to do to create boards such as like the Pet Month board?
No, I mean, you don't have to. Like, if you're buying a consumer milestone board, that can definitely work. You can still add a post to the top left, have those tenets of like, oh, I'm going to add some photos on here to encourage people to add it. There are some things that you do get with the business and pro enterprise plans, like likes and comments, tagging, additional board admins. So there's more engagement settings, but you don't have to have those boards necessarily to create these engagement and culture boards. But if you are already on a plan, of course, you would you would do it through there. And you certainly do have more engagement focused settings on those annual plans.
Totally. Great. All right. Let's see. Okay, last one. We're calling it quits after this one, and this is This is a great question from an anonymous attendee. So are there any good suggestions for incentivizing people to participate? Like how do you get people to participate? What's one recommendation that you have, Julio?
Yeah, I mean, aside from what we've chatted about already in terms of, those features and settings,
Mhm.
um, for me, like the example I showed was the bike centric board that I created in May. I mean, I create that for our team, and I say like, oh, like the top three people are gonna get prizes, and those are prizes I curate myself from. They're just fun. I was telling Gillian about it earlier. It was some prizes from a road trip I did to South Dakota, and it was from this roadside attraction called Walt Drudge. So I had like a koozie and a baseball and some socks and an ornament, and people got to choose. So the first place person got to choose first, and then the second, and then the third. So if I mean that definitely helps if you do want to potentially give a gift card. You can attach a gift card to boards and deliver that to a recipient too. But yeah, that's my recommendation. But every team's going to be different. But you don't need like a prize or monetary gift to encourage people. I would just kind of think, oh, what does my team already like? And if your team already likes the outdoors or food or has those ERGs, I would create based on interest first. And maybe you might want to add a prize, but that's not necessary, I think.
That's it. Yeah, great suggestion. And I just want to double down on that, Julio. Like, yeah, that's like take a look at what your team is already interested in. And for something like Pet Month, like, I mean, come on, like really open up those photos on that phone and see how many pictures of not only your own pets, but probably other people's pets you even have in your camera roll. Like bringing your team together doesn't, may be easier than you think and that people want to connect. So give them a place to connect, and then maybe we'll be surprised at how many people take us up with that ask. Maybe that's positive thinking, but just give it a try and then let us know. All right.
Well, thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it. We'll send out the recording, after this webinar at some point, and we'll also post it on our website. Yeah, we really appreciate you all. If you are interested to learn more, just like we mentioned, sign up for a demo with our sales team for those of you that are on plans. And yeah, encourage you to start thinking, oh, how can I create, celebrate my team and engage my team with these culture-focused boards? Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Any last words, Gilena?
No, thank you so much. Take care, all.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.